Thank you for joining us on the Family First Life Health and Wealth podcast. Please like us on all of our platforms at Family First Life Health and Wealth. I hope this information helps you grow and learn. Please share this with everybody you know, all your friends, all your family. We're hiring all across the country. Be well. Welcome, everyone. Episode 18 of the Health and Wealth Podcast. My name is Steve Giordano. Extremely excited today to have friend, mentor, board member of FFL Apex, Mr. Rob Richman, with us. How you doing today, my friend?
Doing so good. Thanks for having me, Steve.
We got to get you a round of applause. So it's been a long time coming for me and you to sit down and do a podcast. Of the thousands of FFL podcasts, we have never sat down and done one together.
It's true.
Which is kind of crazy, first of all. So, we'll start here. You came to FFL now 3 years ago, almost, 2.5.
Yeah, in April. It'll be 3 years. That's a long time.
Wow.
I didn't realize that. Wow.
Right?
That flew 2.5 years. That means we've worked together for 18 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy, right? So you had worked in insurance prior to FFL how many years?
8.
So 8 years, different system. How did that system differ? And I know it differed a lot from what FFL offered you.
I want to quote you from 1 minute ago. If you chop enough wood, kind of fill in the blank. And
yeah.
I think I was chopping a lot of wood trying to find the right opportunity, the right fit. Not only comp-wise, culturally, for sure, and growth platform. And I had been at several different companies. I think the main difference was some companies had the culture, but they didn't have the leads or the comp. Some had the comp and the leads, but they had no culture. Some had both, but there was politics. And when I came to FFL, I thought it was so refreshing because you were not capped. You could recruit everywhere. There was no politics. That was all stripped out. The comp was there. The growth model was there. And it was just like, hey, you're an entrepreneur. Do what you're going to do. I'll give you a roadmap and just plug into it. And it's not what I loved about it was it's not my fault if you succeed, and it's not my fault if you fail, because I'm going to give you every tool you need to be successful. And if you don't, it just means you put in more work, and then you're going to get better results.
Yeah. Love that.
In a nutshell, yeah.
So I'm going to even back up the train a little bit. What brought you to insurance, and what prior to insurance were you looking to do with your life from college and from growing up?
So this is different than a true talk, right?
We'll throw everything at it.
Okay, well, this is everything at it. So, growing up, I wanted to be in medicine. Then I got to college, and I joined a fraternity and realized that was going to be a really tough career path. And then I got obsessed with the stock market. And I don't know when that happened, but then I wanted to be a stockbroker. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be a broker, So then I graduated undergrad, and then I took a job as a broker with Raymond James, and I had this awesome opportunity to be a junior partner in this group that had $1.2 billion under assets, which was this monster, and they needed a young guy who was hardworking to come in, bang the phones, be client relationships, the whole deal. And then that was in August of 2008, and the market crashed about 90 days after I started, and the guys that I worked with had this huge account. It was a publicly traded company, but it was like a family-owned. The majority of it went from 73 to 3, cut their book to like $200 million, and they were fearing for their jobs. And looking back on it, not to sound like a victim, I was kind of just hung out to dry. But what it taught me was how to make 1 million phone calls, because the white pages were my leads. And anybody that's over 30 probably knows what that is, but it was literally just a phone book with names in it. And I started at A, and if I could finish A, by the end of the week, 50 hours of just banging, maybe I could get somebody on the phone. But I was a 22-year-old kid, not in the right headspace to be cold calling in $250,000 accounts. Even doing that today, that would be intimidating to me. So I got fired. I always will remember this on Martin Luther King Day because it's a holiday. I came in, didn't have to work that day, but came in, and the guy who managed the branch was in there, called me in. He said, hey, this is your last day here. I'm like, all right, I kind of knew this was coming. But he's like, I want you to call me in a year and a half and say, F you, buy me, because I know you're going to be successful somewhere. So go do it somewhere else that's a better fit, and then come back and we'll buy your book. And I got into insurance because that year I got 2 DUIs that year. And after I lost my job, the job market sucked. So I went back to grad school. And I had really good grades because school was easy. I could just take tests, and it was basic, no responsibility, just learn the stuff and do it. And fortunately, I was literate, so I could read and do that. And and I went to all of these like power days, or these recruiting power days at all these different cool companies, and I couldn't get a job. I'd like be meeting the CEO. They do a background check, and they'd be like, "Sorry, you're not a good fit." I'm like, "Why?" They're like, "Well, your background check didn't pass." So I started serving in an Italian restaurant, and I was a busser. I completely humbled. I went from being a stockbroker to busser, making about the same, to be honest with you.
Wow.
Because I wasn't selling anything. Yeah. I had like a $2,000 a month salary, and then you were supposed to make commission that I wasn't making. So in grad school, bussing tables, then get a promotion to be a server and making, I don't know, $700 a week or something. And one of the tables that I was serving said, "Why are you doing this and not selling insurance?" I'm like, well, I never really thought to do that because my stepdad sells insurance, and there were highs and lows with it. And it wasn't necessarily the market that I wanted to get into. I was obsessed with numbers, and I wanted to go to New York City and be an equity analyst. And I thought that'd be just a great job, and then transition into a wholesaler role and basically entertain people for a living. I think that was the frat boy in me coming out, and thought I could be a professional frat boy for the rest of my life. And they make good money, and I thought I'd be really good at it. That didn't happen. Same thing actually happened. Background check came back, got cut. So then this was, can we say names on this podcast, or?
Sure.
I mean, it was AIL. So AIL recruited me. Yeah. And I had a choice. I was graduating grad school, so finished that up, and then go to AIL. And my first interview was, go to the second interview. That was my first interview, and it just go into the group. All right, so go into the group, and I get into the business, and I have this mindset. I'm like, well, I have to get good at one of two things: a 1099 position, or I can be selling food for the rest of my life, or until people don't care about the DUIs that I had because it was so long. And I just really didn't want to sell food anymore. You were in the business. Yeah. And it's not fun. No. It's fun for like the first 6 months. Yeah. 6 weeks, really.
Yeah, it's like a party, and then all of a sudden, like,
and then it doesn't
you
stop.
realize the party is your work.
Yeah, and it's like you're tired and broke and living in crappy housing. So didn't want to do that. And so I get into AIL, and I'm like, well, this could be my shot, because they're saying if you work really hard, you'll make $60,000. We're going to start you at a 40% contract level, and then like after 90 days or whatever, you bump up to a 50. They advance you at 65%, and if you work really hard, you can be a supervising agent, and those guys make 75. Then you can be a general agent, and then those make 100. And if you can be an MGA, managing general agent, you'll make 250. I'm like, whoa, like that's crazy money, because all these guys in grad school were trying to gun for a $50,000 a year salary, and I wasn't about that. I'm a terrible employee. I'm good at my own accountability. So I get into that, and my first week we make 1 million phone calls, set 21 appointments, and go over 21. And I remember sitting, I'm in the kitchen in the break room, drinking like one of those green juices, because I was thinking I cared way more about my physique back then, being 25 at this point. Yeah, 25. So yeah, now it's like a decade in the business, looking back on it. And I'm drinking this green juice thing, telling people it's stupid to drink Red Bull. And fast forward like 2 months into the field, I'd get no-showed, and I'd go to the gas station and chug a Red Bull. That was like my routine. But I wanted to quit, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, like, what am I doing? Like, this sucks. And I was talking trash. I was being the cancer in the office. And my MGA, the guy's name was Matt Parks. He was legit guy. And he's like, "You're an idiot. Don't be stupid. You're really sharp. You'll be good at this. You just need to change your mindset." So there was another guy that worked there that I had actually grown up with, didn't even know he worked there. And he's like, "Dude, watch this podcast that I did." And I watched this podcast, and it was like, don't hope they're there. Don't like be grateful that they show up. That's a bad mindset. Don't be desperate and like beg for a sale and hope they trust you and do business. Be like, yo, you better be there. I'm wasting my time, my gas money. I'm spending my time. You better be there and you better pay attention. And that mindset shift was crazy, because instead it was like me owing them something for being there, but then I changed that to them owing me their attention when I'd get in there. And then the switch flipped, and dude, no lie, I went 74 for 74 after that mindset shift. And the premiums were lower at that company, but April, I started in January or February, I can't remember. In April, the company record at that time was 28,000 net. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
I did 32,000 net that month, and then got an SA promotion. And then, again, I'll just say it how it is. Then I celebrated when I got this other promotion. I was going to get my girlfriend at the time ice cream. I had some cocktails. Someone ran a red light and hit me and T-boned me, totaled my car. They breathalyzed me, and then it was my fault. So then that was, no, I had one. That was my second DUI. That was not 3. I learned my lesson after that.
FFL podcast, don't drink and drive.
Yeah, but for real. But this is my story. That's how I got in there. Now at this point they own me. Yeah. Because I can't, what am I going to do? Right. I have to sell insurance and get good at it. So some things happen. Again, full transparency, I'm sitting in a jail cell for 5 days. I'm the only one in there. It's at this little podunk jail. They bring you barbecue for lunch. That's the kind of jail it is. But there's no TV, there's no clock, there's no windows, I have no idea what time it is except when they feed me. So I asked the guy who was guarding this. Have I ever told you this story?
No.
So
I love it.
So I asked the guy who's guarding the cell, can I have some paper and a pen? And he brings me the paper and the pen. My stepdad had brought me a bunch of books, like just novels. I read them all in like 3 days. I had literally 24 hours of lights on. It was like this, 24 hours a day. Wow. So I ran through all those books. I'm like, what am I going to do? This is miserable. And then like this weird light went off. I'm like, I'd rather be in this jail cell than go back to work at AIL. This is better than working there. And I asked the guy to bring me the paper. He brings it to me. He gives me, you're well behaved, so you've never been in jail. But they don't give you a real pen. They give you the ink thing with the tip on the end of it. And they gave me 20 pieces of paper. Because any more than that, you could hurt yourself, I guess. So I wrote a 20-page business plan, leaving to go to another company, Lincoln Heritage. And I wrote this plan, and you get a call a day. And I called the 5 agents that were on my team. They'd come to the county jail, and I recruited them from jail. Wow. And I left, and I was so tight with these guys because, dude, that company puts you through hell. And we were so tight. I'd imagine it'd be like being a Marine and your brothers that you're getting shot at with. It felt like that. And so I leave. I get out. I go to one call session. I look at one of my buddies who wasn't on my team that came and met me when I was in Mayfield Heights Community Jail. And we look at each other, make this eye contact. It's like, what are we doing? Let's just leave. So we get up and leave. We do a sting operation, go to his general agent, his boss. He was roommates at the time. This kid's dad owned a restaurant. So we got a box truck, moved all of this stuff out of this guy's house when we're supposed to be doing a call session. When that guy's at the office, the guy comes home, there's like no furniture there. And we go to this kid's parents' house, and we start just like planning how we're going to take over. And 1 week later, 55 agents left and came and worked with us. And we started to do this final expense gig. And that was cool. We got up to 196,000 the third month we were there. So it was pretty quick growth, and it was cool. And then I got engaged to my first wife, spent 15 grand on a ring, got a new car. I got like an Audi A5, put money down on it. My payment was stupid. And then I get rolled $100,000 of debt. And my team left. So one of the guys that I paired with there left and went to a different company and rolled me all this debt. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I just spent all of my money. I had 30 grand. Now I had $2,500. And I had no job. And I was working for free. So I reach out to this mortgage protection company. And I'll keep this one quiet because those two sucked. And this one paid me okay. So
we've already got thrown off the air, so you're fine.
Yeah. So hey, no one's playing this. This is a good podcast. So then I go and they promise me all this stuff, good comp and be able to work mortgage leads in my backyard. Well, a guy I worked with at AIL the first time wanted me to partner with him at NAA, and I wouldn't do it. Turns out he was running the territory, and I didn't want to work with the guy. So then I got blackballed from working in Ohio. Now, keep in mind, now this is like 3 weeks later. Now I have like $1,800 to my name, and I got an $800 car payment and $2,000 of rent mortgage with who I was now engaged to. So I had like 5 days before I had negative money in my account, and there were no leads coming in. So the guy gave me a stack of 300. The guy I worked for, not the jerk, gave me a stack of 300 leads that were 7 years old in Pittsburgh. And I spent, you were in Pennsylvania, so you know, like Cleveland to Pennsylvania is not that close. It's like 100 miles and a lot of tolls. And I'm freaking out because I like can afford beef jerky and a tank of gas, and that's really it. So I made 1,200 dials, and I set 7 appointments for a Thursday. So I got up at, I think, like 3:30, left, got my first one at like 7:30. My last one was at 9 o'clock at night. Got home at like 1 o'clock in the morning. It was a day from hell. But I wrote $7,000 that day, and I will never forget like the first people that I went into because there was so much pressure. Kathleen and Richard Christ was their name. Like, you can't forget this kind of thing. I was so nervous. I was sweating, and I'd given presentations before. I'm like, hey, can I use your restroom? I like go up, throw water in my face, freaking out, having a panic attack. Go down and they buy like a $1,700 deal, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm back. Like, I can pay a bill now. This is crazy. Well, then there was a mass exodus from that company that went to this place, Appreciation Financial. I don't even think it's in business anymore. And I fell through the cracks like a Plinko chip, and I got to take over the Northeast Ohio territory and have decent comp. Well, that went on for like a year and a half. Never made good money. I made like $140 maybe, but I was paying for leads, and I had an office and the whole deal. And then I wanted to get away from Cleveland. I just had kind of had enough of it. If you're from Cleveland, you get it. It's like very not sunny ever. So I had the opportunity to go down to Dallas. I'm an idiot, and this is who I went to go work for. The same guy that rolled me all the debt started an AIL agency in Dallas, and that's what got me down to Texas. And I was there for 6 months and realized, yeah, this is not where I want to work. So then I reached back out to the mortgage protection company. He gave me my job back. Timing was good. Recruited a couple agents from there, and then took the agency to the #1 agency really quick. In like 2 months, because these guys knew AIL people know how to grind, and I think we all know that here. And then I had a head injury. I had a brain hemorrhage and brain bleed, this whole thing, and I basically died. An undercover cop threw me in an ambulance, and I was on bed rest for 5 weeks or so and completely lost my short-term memory. And all the work that I'd put in completely fell by the wayside. It fell apart, and I worked for 2.5 years to get it back to the level that it was, and I was really challenged to do that. Now, they changed their marketing from being a lead-based company to renting out like community centers and doing social security seminars, which I wanted no part of. That was not the job that I took. Very weird timing. An agent that worked for me came over to FFL and started writing. He was the $3,000, $4,000 a week guy. Started writing $13,000, $14,000, $15,000 a week. And I'm like, this guy isn't even good. You know what I'm talking about. And he's kind of lazy. How is this happening? So I reached out to him. He tuned me into like their weekly numbers reading thing, whatever. And I reached out and I'm like, there's got to be something to this. I'm never going to work for you, but I would work with you if you introduce me to the guy who's running this deal, which was Mark Mead. So this is what we tell all the time. We go to this nice steakhouse, and I think he's bitter about it from the way he talks about it now.
Because he says it's multiple steakhouses.
Multiple, yeah, it was 2. It was definitely 2. So we go to this awesome place, and it was like best steak I ever had. And halfway through the dinner, I just went there because I wanted a dinner, and I wanted a cocktail with this guy who was running $1 million a month shop, which was the size of the company that I was working at. And he's got a $1.2 million deal, and I'm like, what the heck is this guy doing? Like, even if this isn't a good fit, maybe I can take a nugget from that dinner and put it into my business plan and grow from it. Well, halfway through the dinner, we're just talking, and anybody that knows Mark, he lets out his infamous laugh. It's, ha ha! Richie Rich, I've been trying to hire you my entire career. And I'm like, all right, that's really flattering, but like, let's talk about what the logistics are of this. He's like, what's it going to take? I'm like, well, this sounds really good. Number 1, I can recruit outside of Dallas. I love that. Number 2, the comp is good, but it's pretty much what I'm making at this other company. So that part's okay, but the opportunity to grow is great. Integrity wasn't on the table, so it wasn't even a conversation at this point.
It's funny how different of a world it was.
Dude, it was completely
like
different.
3 years ago.
Completely. Yeah. Shoot. Yeah. Really. I think I met him in February.
Yeah.
Is when that was. And then what did we decide? I don't know what happened, but then I'm like, you got to come back and meet a couple of my guys. One of them was Jesse. And he came back, and we made the transition. And it's funny because I thought I made a mistake when I came here. The first few weeks were so bad.
Running all second chance mortgage.
Well, yes, eventually. So Mark saved me with that.
Okay.
He threw me 100 second chance leads. And what was so funny about that is like Mark was making so much money, and I thought these leads were like really expensive. That, they're $3 a piece, and it was a $300 investment. And I'm like, oh, Mark, like
Richie Rich, I got you steaks and second chance mortgage,
you
bro.
You saved me. Oh my God, I was gonna be priced out of the business. Oh my God, you're the best. But before that, I came over with like 25 grand. I was not in a good place financially. I took 5,000 and I bought 100 annuity leads, which were fake.
Yeah.
And the company wasn't real.
Sure.
So right off the bat, 20% of all of the money I had in my name, boom, gone. then I spent $2,500 on EverQuote leads because they were doing that 100% match.
Yeah.
So I broke even on
Okay.
on those. I was not approaching them the right way. So there's a way that you can sell on them, and I was not the guy. In fact, I called Dom Rogers. He was the first person outside of Mark that I talked to, and he just shredded me. He's like, dude, quit complaining the way Dom, dude, what are you complaining about? Come on, just sell some insurance, make more calls. Why are you complaining? That, you know how he is. And I tried, and I was no good at it. And I thought, like, this is not week 2.5 or 3. And I was like pressing send on my cell phone to go back to work at that other company. And then Mark goes, all right, here's leads. All right, just work them. And that week was terrible too, because every lead I called told me they had already taken care of it or something. They weren't interested anymore. And I'm like, what am I going to do here? So then I buy some more, and I'm like, I have got to change my approach. And my approach that I changed was when someone told me they had already taken care of it, or they weren't interested anymore, or they didn't qualify, or they changed their mind, I'm like, Steve, perfect. That's exactly why I'm calling. I had the local agency here, and I'm doing some damage control. There's a ton of bad agents running around showing the right people the wrong product for their situation. And 9 out of 10 times, I'm able to get them into a better position financially, whether that means better living benefits for what they're paying for, or cut some costs out of the equation and get you with a better company. And look, I'm not in the business of wasting time. In best case scenario here, you're 1 out of the 10 that, I can't help, but I can validate that you're in the best position you can possibly be in. But the other best case scenario is you're one of the 9 out of 10 that I can help put into a better position. So let me just verify a little bit of information here and see if it makes sense for us to get together. And I rattled that thing off, and it worked. And then the next 4 in a row told me, no, go fly a kite. But then I talked to 5 more, and 1 would set. So I talked to 5 people or 4 people, and better I got at it. I talked to 3 and set 1. In the beginning, it was maybe 1 out of 6. But, dude, they all showed up, and I was closing 100% of the people. And I'd find an angle on everything. So April was like I had 3 weeks in, and that was like the worst 3 weeks. I think I did like 15,000 and wanted to quit. In May, I did 96,000 IP. And that was like the company record at that point. And it was off the garbage that nobody wanted to sell.
Right.
So I started treating second chance leads as brand new BPLs. I'm like, 20 new mailers. They'd be in the inventory, just aged mortgage or whatever the hell they were. And I'd scour it like 3 times a day, and I'd probably buy 150 of them. And the funny thing is like those leads that I bought, I sold more insurance than I did brand new mortgage mailers. Wow. My best months, in the beginning,
right.
I ended up getting better at my job. I get more lead flow, whatever. Sure. But those second chance leads I was writing an average of 65, 70,000 a month off of that stuff for 5 months. And then the guy that doesn't work here anymore said, I'm going to run a final expense agency. I'm giving up all my BPLs in the whole Metroplex. So I locked up 13 counties, and my overhead went to like $3,000 a week, which I wasn't crazy about, but I didn't have to make as many dials, and then the numbers stayed pretty consistent. And then for 75 weeks in a row, my numbers, because I started to do what you did. When I asked you where you were at, because like, dude, we became boys before we ever worked together. And I'd be like, where are you at for the week? And you could like freaking rattle it off. I'm like, how the hell did you know your numbers? And you're like, well, I keep a running notepad. So then I did that, and like 70, maybe not 75, it was at least 70. It was over a year. It was a year and a half. And when that note got deleted, I was like, oh, that hurt.
I'm always afraid of deleting that, by the way.
It's like you probably have a running.
I have the whole time I've been at FFL in one note.
I became obsessed with it. And every week, dude, you'd write way more insurance than I would, but I was more consistent than you. I would write between 22.5 and 25.2.
Yeah, you'd run 3 appointments and write 30 grand. It was amazing. I didn't know how he did it.
I would run 20. I
needed 50 appointments.
I would set 22 appointments a week. That was it. And I'd spread it over 7 days, but I'd set really good appointments. And if I got no-show, my day sucked and crumbled. But I was really intentional about giving them every out. The way I wrote business and ran my personal production is not necessarily duplicatable. But I tried to give outs. I wanted to make my life really easy. Yeah. So I would set 7 days a week. I worked 7 days a week. Every Sunday was a 10:30, an 11:30, and a 1 o'clock. And then I'd get back and watch football. But I
want to stop you there for 2 seconds because there's a couple things. You've unpacked a ton with great stuff. One, we can make the graphic of the podcast you in the prison garb, right? We can put that there. From prison to FFL,
it's so embarrassing.
FFL board member, right? So that's number one. Number two, the mindset shift that literally that entire story and what I'm going to talk about here is your mindset shifted your entire time of your journey of life and work, right? And you never let it hinder you. And then I'll give everybody this story. When I met you, which I believe was that May on the phone, I had been in 2-3 months. I had a little bit of success. I was kind of hitting like a couple of like rough weeks. Yeah. And I remember talking to you, and the big takeaway was mindset, number one, and also your intentionality in what you were doing. You were like, Steve, like, this is what I run. I run my 22 appointments. I run every day. I go in like I'm going to sell it. And I remember walking away from that because I was selling, but I wasn't selling like from a confident place.
Yeah.
And when I talk to you, I'm like, damn, like this guy's crazy confident. Like I got to do that. And and it's not like being cocky or anything. It was just like you're confident in what you're doing and you're conveying the message to the client. And then they're like, yeah, I'm going to do business with that guy. So I thank you for that.
Yeah.
Because $3 million later, you helped me out.
Geez, man. I mean, that is really crazy. I remember that phone call. I was driving down to somewhere in freaking middle of nowhere, and I had like an hour-long drive, and it went like that. And I'm like, we should just talk all the time. And then it just turned into we just became running mates with no financial incentive for a year. And that was the best. I mean, do you remember Tank Tops and Coffee?
Oh, yeah.
You remember that every Sunday?
Was
that Sunday or was that Saturday?
Sunday.
That was, duh, of course that was Sunday. The only day you wouldn't work. Yeah. So
sounds cute on here, Tank Tops and Coffee.
We'd sit with our spouses and we'd talk, and we weren't even working together at that point. We're like, dude, we have to grow this thing.
Right.
How are we gonna do it? So we'd sit out by our pools, drink coffee in workout clothes, and just be like, what the heck are we doing? How do we fix it? And I think what I was willing to do, and back to when we had that initial conversation, like I was so fresh in the business. I just had this mentality of like, whoa, doing all the things I don't want to do really worked. So I'm just going to enjoy doing the hard stuff that no one wants to do and make a game of it. So like on the dial days, dude, I mean, second chance leads it's brutal. You're going to war. And I would just always be like, how many leads can I burn? What's my burn pile look like? How many can I resolve? If I buy 100, like let me resolve 80 of these and carry the other 20 over to another week or another dial day, whatever it was. But I think I just communicated that. It's like, dude, this job sucks until you figure out how to just figure it out.
Right.
And then it's awesome in the field. It's like torture yourself on Monday and Thursday and then drive around and pick up checks on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. And you're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. And people don't focus. They focus on like the heart of it, the nose, instead of focusing on like at the end of the week, you're going to write 10K, 20K, whatever.
Yeah.
Like what you would you didn't make that in a month.
Right.
Prior to being here, and now you do.
Mm-hmm. And it got to the point where like the phone would ring, it would say Steve, be like, I wonder what this story's
Got some good ones.
This is gonna be a good one. Yeah, exactly.
So now we're both learning and growing every day. You transition to now leading the agency, board member, doing north of $1 million a month. How did you change? How are you changing and evolving? Because now it's just totally different. I mean, you wrote $900,000 2 years ago, personal production, number 2 in the company. I don't know who number 1 was. Maybe you were number 3. I don't want to put you too high.
Life only number 2.
Life only. Okay, got it. How have you changed your mind, and what are some of the things you're working on? You know, we're obviously here at a meeting about, growth today. What's that process look like?
Well, I was so good at selling that it became easy. And when I pulled, the growth really happened when I pulled out of the field, when we had, it was happening a little bit before that, but I had transitioned from full-time in the field to trying to build most of the time. And that was a huge identity crisis. I had no idea who I even was, and it took like 6 or 7 months to even figure out what the heck is my role here now. I was always the figurehead of, like, then you even looked up to me then. You're like, well, he taught me how to do this business. I was like, my identity was go out and lead by example, taught the number one guy how to freaking crank it. Now I'm like, what's my identity? I got this little baby agency and nobody even recognizes me anymore. This is weird. How do I fix that? I was seeking recognition, and it was purely selfish. And when I stopped doing that, when I stopped caring what people thought, and I stopped trying to be, at the time, Grady Polson was like where Nina was, like the explosion that Nina just had.
Yeah.
Where it's like, what? I want to be like Grady.
Yep.
Or I want to be like Mark. I want to be like Andrew. Or like I'm trying to be like the most unduplicatable person in the world, which is Sean. And I'm like, I'm getting poured into by all these people, but it's like, it doesn't make sense. Something is not working because I'm trying to be Sean. I'm trying to be Grady, who's the master of MLM and social media. I'm trying to be Mark, who could afford more staff in a small country. I'm trying to be Andrew, who had like built this culture of appreciation of people that would just go to work. I'm like, I don't have that. How do we do that? I shut all that stuff out, and I'm like, who do I want to be? I want to be a guy who sets agents up for financial independence, who can put together a structure where it can be somebody who was a landscaper, who was painting houses, who was a school teacher, who was someone who was a forklift driver, can come in with no experience and just bring work ethic and $1,000 to the table, and put them in a position to win and micromanage that process instead of micromanaging the people. Because I've ruined my agency so many times, and by the grace of freaking God, it didn't all fall apart. But I have been so tyrannical with people at times that they don't even want to take my calls. They don't respond to my texts, and they intentionally leave the read receipts on, which is the biggest smack in the face. It's like, I read it, but I'm not going to respond because I hate you.
But I do want to know what you said.
Yeah. And I hated that. That was pain. And I changed from pain. I don't change from comfort. If I get comfortable or if bills are paid, I'm saving a ton of money, making $100,000 a month, like that was comfortable for me. But the pain of not having respect because I was a poor leader and I wasn't being who I wanted to be, that was enough to make me say, I know nothing. I'm going to shred myself apart down to the studs and rebuild this thing, which happened 8 weeks ago because I was so sick and tired of where we were at, of us not having the best relationship professional at that point, of us being on an island, of my agents all operating independently. The minute I took that out of it, I'm like, screw my pride. I don't even care about money anymore. Let me just see what I can do to help. How can I help? How can I empower? How can I not enable, but how can I help foster a culture of appreciation and intrinsic motivation so they want to go get it for them and not for me? How do I remove myself from that so then people don't say, well, I'm working really hard so you get a buyout? Dude, I want to poke my eyes out when Chris Wasserman was saying that, I want to get you a buyout. No, dude, you want to get yourself in a position where you're financially independent. Stop saying that. And then saying that out loud meant I did something that would create that environment where people said, I want to get you a buyout. That was terrible. It was toxic. It was awful. When people were tired, they wouldn't go to work because they were doing it for me, not for them. Taking that out of it, then people start to build. Like Garrett the Raging Cajun, I almost lost him because I was being such a douche to him. I was trying to tell him what to do, and he's the only guy growing in the damn company right now, in Apex. He was throwing people in, churning them out. They were writing business. And I'm trying to change what he's doing because my ego and pride was getting in the way. Right. I stopped doing that, and he went from doing 40,000 as a team, 30,000 him, and then like 2 new agents doing 10,000 to he almost did 100,000 last month. And he's excited. He's got his wife on board, and he's doing warm market recruiting. And that kind of thing will help create the environment for true growth. Mm-hmm. And I don't even look at my bank account anymore. I don't look at commission statements because I don't even want to have income or chargebacks dictate my mood or how I'm going to lead.
That's a good point.
And it put me in a bad mood every time. And be like, oh, I hope I'm not negative today. Or like, when we pull out of the field, like my God, you're making $40,000 some weeks. Like when that isn't coming in like that, it dictates your mood and it's really stressful. So I stopped that, and that helped. That helped just be positive. And if I was going to be negative, as immature, well, this might be the most mature thing. I don't go into the office. I'll work from my phone, from my house, and not be lazy. But I won't bring my dark cloud into the office anymore. If I'm just waking up like a cantankerous bastard, like I don't go in. But and if I feel like I need to micromanage, I'll do something to take my mind off of it. I'll recruit, or I'll look through my book of business and see if there's any clients I want to reach out to, or like I'll just torture myself at the gym and then be in a better mood.
Yeah.
And then go in. And I'm working on that. But I think it's really positive to not bring that kind of negativity, or your financial problems, not even problems, but just stresses, and put that on somebody else's plate. That was toxic. So stop that.
Yeah, I think you see change. I've seen change in you. And I think the end of the day, like, none of us, even though we all have our level of success, right? Like, you doubled last year, I doubled last year. Like, we all had our level of success, but the bar has been raised. So what we're all trying to do now is say, all right, I've done it all year long now so far, like all 6 days of it. Looking in the mirror and saying, all right, if it's not working, it's you.
Dude, you freaking did that, and then you get this potentially massive group.
Yeah.
Like the minute that it's so funny, it's like that. It's a tease. It's like beginner's luck, and then you got to deal with reality when you do it, and then you don't keep getting these like
correct,
ridiculous.
and you got to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Right. It's like Sean says it. You want 6 packs, but you don't want to go to the gym. You want to go to the gym one day a week and eat hamburgers. It's not going to work that way. Right. You got to torture yourself, and then you'll get there. Well, this is great. This was gold. This was, we'll call it uncensored, right? I appreciate working with you. I appreciate our friendship. I appreciate where we're headed. We fight like brothers, but we do it because we love each other. Yeah. And I think we're on this beautiful journey. It's a struggle, but we're really building something, and we're going to get to where we want to go. And where we want to go is really, like you said, where everybody on our team is getting to the level that they want to get to. And if they all win, everybody will win. So it's been awesome.
Yeah, it is. I have nothing else to say. That was great.
So we'll end it on that. I appreciate you, and let's get out and kill it. We got the convention coming up in a month, so everybody get there, fflconvention.com, register, and appreciate everybody. See you next week.